Hello, welcome to Let's Talk Space News for Friday, March 29th. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Kyle Henry. Let's talk about what's going on in space.
I never want to hold again.
Falcon Heavy is on startup.
Go Atlas.
Go Centaur.
Status check.
Go Delta.
5, 4, 3.
Ignition.
The Air Force is requesting launch vehicles for national security launches. They're looking for bids for these national security launches that will take place between 2020 and 2025. And these bids have actually become a bit controversial. Now, Blue Origin has argued that they should be delaying the awarding of these launches to allow for companies to better develop their vehicles. Right now, only SpaceX and ULA are believed to be able to bid on some of these with Atlas V, Delta IV, and Falcon 9. However, Blue Origin is arguing that they should be allowed to bid on these as well, because if not, they would basically be creating a duopoly, I guess a monopoly plus one, in the launch market, as it would cut Blue Origin out until 2025. It would also likely cut Northrop Grumman out with their Omega rocket. Now, there is a reason to actually do these bids early, and that is because the U.S. right now has a deadline that they cannot launch national security launches on a Atlas V with an RD-180 after 2022. So the argument for getting these launches handed out sooner is that if they don't get these launches done on Atlas V, I think they have 12 RD-180s that can be used for national security launches. Basically, what happened a few years ago was the U.S. sanctioned Russia, and in retaliation, Russia said that the U.S. couldn't use the RD-180s, which are built in Russia, on national security launches, and the U.S. said that they wanted to get off it by 2022, and we're now seeing that deadline start to come into play with these national security launches. Now, honestly, this is an interesting story. I think that even if they were to delay, I don't see Blue Origin or Northrop Grumman getting their new systems certified before the deadline to have these launches. Like, both Blue Origin are... I know New Glenn isn't scheduled to fly, I think, until either 2020 or 2021. And then you have to get through the process of basically certifying that the vehicle is ready for national security launches. So this is something that took SpaceX multiple years to get through. So even if they held off on awarding these launches, I think that it would be unlikely to see this, or to see a new vehicle from Blue Origin or Northrop Grumman getting selected just because they are new and don't have the certification to do these yet. But we'll continue following this story as it develops. I believe the Air Force will be issuing this request in the next 2 weeks. They were originally supposed to have them out by today, but they slipped into April. So yeah. So when we hear what's going to happen, we'll let you know. But it seems like the Air Force is going to move forward with issuing these launches. And over in India, they purposely destroyed one of their own satellites in the testing of an anti-satellite defense system. They destroyed the Microsat-R that launched in January aboard a PSLV. And it is estimated that this destruction created between 250 and 6,000 pieces of debris, most of these pieces smaller than half a centimeter. Now, a lot of these pieces, because Microsat-R was in a low orbit, are expected to come down in the next 45 days. However, some of these pieces will stay up, and it has caused a bit of conflict because you really don't want to be destroying your own satellites and generating debris, because I don't know if you guys have seen the movie Gravity. When you destroy your satellite, you have a chance of setting off an even worse outcome and creating this huge debris cloud that, like, as unrealistic as Gravity can be in some parts, that the part where they were talking about what's known as Kessler syndrome, where debris basically just continues to snowball until you literally can't use orbit anymore. That's actually a real thing and something that we do need to start worrying about. So purposely creating thousands of pieces of debris that are really small and could cause this is not the best thing for India to do. However, being an American, I really can't judge them because the U.S. is actually one of the 3 other countries to have developed this. So in terms of mutually assured destruction, I can't really say I'd blame India for this, but it definitely isn't the sort of thing that you really want to be developing as a spacefaring nation. Now, I said the U.S. had developed it. They first did a test like this in 1959. Russia then followed them, or technically back then it was the Soviet Union, in 1963. And then China conducted a test in 2005 and then another one in 2007. So India is joining this small elite group of countries that can do this. It's definitely a troublesome story, but again, I can't blame India for doing it, but I do have to say it probably wasn't the best idea. Now, they did make sure that the satellite was in a low orbit and that the pieces would be coming down soon, but still, it's a lot of risk and honestly not a lot of reward because, like, the purpose of this system, you wouldn't be shooting down an enemy satellite because that would basically be declaring war, and it sort of has been established since the beginning of the space program that you're allowed to fly over enemy territory with satellites. Like, you can't really control that, and I think what the main purpose for this is that they want to be able to shoot down a satellite that isn't working anymore that may have, like a spy satellite that takes images where something could survive re-entry and land in a hostile territory. I'll be honest, I think it'd be better just to let it re-enter on its own, but it's up to the country, and hopefully this doesn't become something that everyone just starts doing, but who knows. And we had 2 launches in the last couple of days. First off, the OSM-1 with the Lingui-1B. That was the Chinese private company OneSpace attempting to become the first private Chinese company to launch something into orbit. That launch unfortunately did fail after second stage separation, or after first stage separation, my apologies. It appeared as if the second stage went out of control. Like, I know there was video that was up a few days ago that showed it going out of control, but I think the Chinese government has taken that down, or the user who posted it has taken that down. But like, you could see the first stage was flying pretty straight, and then there was a brief cutoff when the second stage separated and started, and all of a sudden it just started going back and forth and back and forth, and then it looked like it almost took a nosedive, but that might have just been it heading towards the horizon. OneSpace is still investigating this failure. We wish them the best of luck and hope that they can get back on track and get a launch happening soon. Yeah. And our second launch was the Electron with the R3D2. That launch successfully took place Thursday, March 28th at 7:27 p.m. Eastern Time from the Mahia Peninsula in New Zealand. We had reported that it was going to happen on Wednesday, but literally between when we recorded and when we uploaded, they had changed the launch date, and I had put down here on the bar that it was on Thursday, but I don't know if any of you guys caught that. Hopefully you did. My apologies for that. But they delayed on Wednesday due to a high chance of weather violations as well as possible collisions on orbit. The R3D2 is a DARPA payload that will be testing a new type of antenna for small satellites. So congrats to Rocket Labs on the successful launch, and congrats to DARPA on having their satellite in orbit. And we have one launch upcoming in the next couple of days and one big event coming up in the next couple of days. First off, that launch, that is a PSLV with the EMI-SAT. This is India's polar satellite launch vehicle, and it is flying in a new configuration with 4 strap-on solid rocket boosters. It's either EMI-SAT or EMI-SAT. Is reported to be an intelligence gathering satellite for the Indian government. However, it is classified, so who knows what it's doing. But they will also be carrying multiple other secondary payloads. I know Dove, I think, is flying about 20 of their satellites on this flight. That launch is scheduled for just at the end of March, on March 31st at 11:57 p.m. So it'll literally launch on 31st but arrive in orbit on the 1st. That launch is taking place at the Satish Dhawan Space Center in India. And the big event that we have coming up is the Falcon Heavy static fire. The second Falcon Heavy is set to roll out on the 31st for a now April 2nd static fire is what is being reported. This is the second Falcon Heavy to ever be built and is going to be flying the Arabsat 6A launch, which is currently scheduled for launch on April 7th from Launch Complex 39A in Cape Canaveral, Florida. But that's going to about do it for this episode. I'm Kyle Henry. Thank you so much for watching. We post newscasts like this every Tuesday and Friday. So if you enjoyed, hit the like and subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you can stay up to date on what's going on in space. We also post the sources for today's stories in the description down below so you can check our facts. If something doesn't seem right, let us know. We strive for 100% accuracy in our coverage. Thank you so much for joining us. Goodbye.